All right, so when we left off, we were talking about how to find the A value and the B value given a table. So we're going to continue off with that, and we're going to be looking at number 3. So when I'm looking at number 3, I can see that X is 0, then I'm looking for the Y value. And the Y value there is 8. So my A value is 8, which is the Y-intercept. So then I'm going to look at what change is happening for my Y values. So to get from 8 to 4, we're dividing by 2. And then get to 4 to 2, we're dividing by 2. And to get to 2 to 1, we're dividing by 2. But remember, we cannot divide by 2. We have to write B as a multiplier. So we have to say that divided by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. And since my base is less than 1 but greater than 0, this is going to be decay. So my equation is y equals 8 times 1/2 raised to x. All right, so for number 4, if you notice in number 4, we do not have an x value of 0. So let's look at the b value first. So I see to get from 12 to 48, we're multiplying by 4. And then 48 to 192 is times 4, and then 192 to 768 is times 4. So when we're looking at this, how are we going to get the y-intercept? Well, to get the y-intercept, we have to remember that we got to go back to where x is 0. So we need to go backwards here. So if I was multiplying by 4 to get to the next step, I'm going to divide by 4 to go backwards, and I'm going to get 12 divided by 4. And 12 divided by 4 is going to equal 3. So my y-intercept is 3 here. So again, we're going to work backwards to get to the y-intercept in order to make that work. All right, so we have an A value of 3. We have a base of 4, which is my multiplier. My multiplier is going to represent growth because we're multiplying by a number greater than 1. So that means y equals 3 times 4 raised to x. All right, so then we looked at some graphs, and we said that looking at graphs means we have to actually create our own tables. Well, to start off with, I have a y-intercept at 3. So I know that my A value is 3. Now, I will make a table of values of perfect points. Now, in this situation, the perfect points are given to me. So I'm going to be able to look. Now, I don't want to use these points right here because we're not perfect. So those are going to have to be estimations, and we don't want that. So we're going to start off going from left to right. So we always want to go from the left side to the right side in order. Okay? So we have at 3, we have at 1, 6, and we have at 2, 12. So we have 0, 3, and we have 1, 6. And honestly, we only need 2 points. So I can essentially say, okay, to get from 3 to 6, we're multiplying by 2. So my B value is 2, which is going to be growth. And we can see that this is J-shaped, so it is growth. Also, if I wanted to continue on, I could essentially say, okay, if I want to get to my next value of 2, I could say, okay, times 2 again, which is going to be 12, which we can in fact see that this is at 12. All right, so my equation here is going to be y equals 3 times 2 raised to x. All right, so in the next one, same situation. It's J-shaped, so it's going to be growth. I'm not going to want to use these points right here because they're not perfect points. So we're going to start off with our y-intercept is at 5. So we're going to use, we're going to say is at 5. So we know A is equal to 5. And we're going to need to make a table here of values. So when we make that table of values, we're going to pick perfect points. Again, you really only need 2, and they have to be in order. So in order, we're going to go this way. So we have 0, 5. We have 1 and 15, and we technically have 2 and 45 as well that we can use. So when I'm looking at this, I have 0, 5, 1 and 15, 2 and 45. All right, so we can see that we're going up and we're multiplying by 3. So my base is 3. So b equals 3. And we can say that my base is greater than 1, so it's going to be growth. So we have y equals 5 times 3 raised to x. All right, and the last one, that one's an L shape, so we're going to have decay here. So we're looking at our y-intercept. We can see that that's halfway between 0 and 20, so we know that our y-intercept is going to be at 10. I normally don't say to estimate, but we can see that that is halfway, and we got to have it. So then I'm going to make my table, and in my table I can see that I have from left to right. So remember, we always go from left to right or you're going to get it wrong. It's going to go in the opposite direction, and we don't want that. So from left to right, we have -2 and 160, -1 and 40, and 0 and 10. So we have -2 and 160. We have -1 and 40 again, and we have 0 and 10. So we're looking at this situation. We should be able to analyze it and say, okay, we're dividing by 4. But we can't write it as division. We have to be able to say that dividing by 4 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 1/4. So my base is 1/4, and we can say this is decay. So I have y equals 10 times 1/4 raised to x. Now, the only thing additional that I want to point out is, what if I'm not given points? And if I'm not given points, I'm going to need to identify that situation. So if I pull up Desmos and I'm looking at, so I'm just going to create a graph here, and I'm going to put in an equation. All right, so here's my graph that I have. Let's say that's what's given to us. So screenshotting this so that I can write on it. If I'm trying to create a table for this, I'm going to be looking at creating points that I see, perfect points. So when I go from left to right, so again, remember, we always want to go from the left, and we're going to go down and to the right. So my perfect points, I have a perfect point. If I look, I see I have a perfect point at -1.6. All right, so then I can keep going. I see I have one at 0.2. And those are really the only ones that I see. So if I make my table is going to be -1.6 and 0 and 2. So we only have 2 points in this situation. So I can identify that I, in fact, have a y-intercept at 2, so my a is equal to 2. But I'm going to need to look at what's happening here. So to get from 2 to 6, that's going to be divided by 3. Well, divided by 3 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. So that's going to be decay, and we can see that it's going down. So my equation is y equals 2 times 1/3 raised to x.